is so nice to meet all of you. For those of you with whom I've not had a chance to meet and talk about all things climate, I do see so many new faces. My name is Sadaf, and I've recently joined the city of Stratford as manager for climate change programs. I have moved across the country from British Columbia, where I was working for the city of New Westminster as senior climate action planner. I am very excited to lead Stratford's response to climate change and support the community as we transition to a net zero future. We do have a timeline for that. As all of us are aware, we do have a very strict timeline and we need to adhere to that timeline. So firstly, I would like to thank you for inviting me to your roundtable discussion and providing me an opportunity to talk about my role. So I would like to take it slower, just because Sharon mentioned that. I would like to start with my educational background. So my educational background and work experience is in architecture, project management, as well as sustainability and climate policy. I have worked in several countries over the past 10 years, and over this period, I've had great opportunities to be a part of many remarkable projects. I've led diverse teams, and I've developed community-centric policies that advance climate action. Also in Canada, I did that in New Westminster. So we developed the community energy and emissions plan, as well as the e-mobility strategy. Also did substantial amount of work for the corporation as a whole. So I'm excited to bring all my learnings from New Westminster, from my previous role, to this new city. There is a lot of work to be done. As you know, we have to start from somewhere, and this is a great place to start. So I would also like to point out that although the task ahead, it does seem overwhelming, it's something that other cities around the world and around Canada have been doing consistently over the past few years, taking the lead on all things climate and showing us ways how things can be done in order to achieve our targets. And there are several equitable pathways to get to a net zero world. So as we get into it, a large part of my role is to be a main contact for the city and lead our strategy to advance towards climate change. And because we have our targets, we have those to account to. I will also be working alongside city staff as well as the community to develop different corporate focused and community focused long-term planning strategies, as well as frameworks to support both our emissions reduction targets. So our targets are basically the same for now for the corporation as well as the community. So we know where to start. Also, I would also be engaging with a number of stakeholders, including yourselves. I have had a chance to meet Sheila in person. I've had a chance to meet with Energy Environment Committee members during all our meetings, the ICI Waste Reduction Group. So I'm hoping to take all the context that I am getting from understanding different groups, viewpoints, as well as all the great work that different community members have been doing so far, and taking it forward. And I look forward to working with all of you on all the different programs that I envision would come into play early next year. So early next year is when I imagine my short, medium, and long-term work plan will be brought to council. So I'm very excited about that. And on December 12th, which is coming Monday, I will be presenting to council two of my reports. So one is the Green Recognition Program, and the other one is just summarizing all the recent climate change initiatives and all the work that has been done in the city thus far. So that is that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if you have any specific questions regarding my role, I'd be happy to get into that as well.
Well, I have a question. You're talking about how you have community-centric projects, And I'm wondering, because I'm thinking of you as sort of a technical person. How do you consider the community when you're planning a project that it's got to be community centric? How do you draw people in?
Well, to answer your first question, yes, I am the technical person for this role as well. And I have been providing technical input into the city's projects and programs and understanding what opportunities we can tap into and maximizing such opportunities for innovation and understanding where our carbon reduction needs can be met. Similarly, I plan to start with a community emissions plan for the city as well. And for that, I believe I would have to speak with a large number of stakeholders, be it the Energy Environment Committee, ICI Waste Reduction Group, Carbon Reduction Group as well. And a large part of the engagement strategy would actually be having public consultations. So when we have such a plan in place, and we do have like a plan for the community plan, I believe, we would be having separate stages for community engagement within that timeline, as it is with other plans that are developed by the city, and they move forward from conceptual stages to actually getting a consultant and getting all the support from a consultant as well. So we have different phases, and there are plugs where community input is gathered, and based on the input we have, that's how we will gather your insights and use it to inform our decisions for the plan.
So would you be using the Engage Stratford website?
Yes, I believe so. That is the city's official path to have community engagement. I also I would be happy to bring up such like plans and all the different initiatives we have to the Energy Environment Committee. My director takes it to the ITS subcommittee for input from different members as well as council from there. And I also imagine such engagement would be available for the community to participate in through the different social media channels we have. And as well as from my understanding, the town crier will also have something related to the community plan for input.
And will there be public meetings?
At this point, I'm not sure if there will be public meetings. However, I would have more information to provide once we really start with the plan and initiating the entire timeline for the plan. So I will be able to provide information at a later date. As you know, currently, I have been with the city for 2 months, and I'm still absorbing a lot of information on a daily basis. And based on all the chats that I have with community members, based on my understanding of our key priorities, that's what I'm focusing on. And I do imagine I will be reaching out to different groups of stakeholders and sort of developing a timeline that we can all adhere to it.
So do you find, you're from New Westminster, the big city, right? You find Stratford, do you think there's going to be a problem with accepting new things here in Stratford? Do you think that people are going to be open to radical change, or are we just going to get incremental change?
Well, your question is very, I guess it's packed, I would say. Yes, New Westminster is geographically different. It has a different demographic. It has around 80,000 people as of the 2021 census. And Stratford is, I believe, 33,000 as per the 2021 census. There is a different demographic here. There is a different geography here as well. So New Westminster has a lot of hills. It has different priorities and concerns for citizens. And Stratford has a different climate. So that's something to consider for the city as well. So I would say there is a lot of opportunity we could tap into for Stratford. As you know, we're not reinventing the wheel. This is nothing radical that we are planning or I'm proposing. It's nothing of that sort. As I mentioned, a lot of cities around the world, as well as throughout Canada, have been successful in implementing such plans, not doing anything radical, but actually supporting the community in understanding what needs to be done in order to achieve any sorts of emission reduction opportunities. So I guess I would disagree with you in that way. We are not doing anything radical. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. It is something that has been done. We have so many examples from so many different places that we can tailor specifically to Stratford and all the opportunity it has. For example, although Stratford has like 33,000 residents, according to the census, there is a substantial amount of tourists, like a large number of tourists do visit each year. And I've had a chat with Destination Stratford, and they provided me the numbers. So 1.5 million tourists actually visit Stratford each year. So that is something that also needs to be accounted for. So I wouldn't compare it to any other city. However, I would like to understand the entire context behind having this influx of people come in each year for at least 6 months and also account for those emissions. So I know it seems like a tougher challenge. I understand the community might be resistant to change, but change management is also a piece of this puzzle. It also needs to be accounted for, and with all the great individuals we have in this group, and I'm sure we have many such groups, I'm sure we can find an equitable way to reach our targets. And it doesn't just depend on the city developing a plan and expecting the community to just follow it. It also means that the city, and my position, of course, is always there to provide support and help out and make people understand what needs to be done. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Oh, we've actually got 2 more questions for you. We've got one from Alan, who said, and I see you too, Mike, and I see Jeff. But Alan says, do you see community engagement as more than gathering input? Will the community be included in actual real decision making? Good question.
Great question. Maybe, thank you, Alan. Maybe you can also advise, just from my understanding and clarification, what you mean by actual real decision making, so I can provide you further input.
You could talk, Ellen, if you want. You know, it's not just us guys.
Yeah, it's not just me.
Yeah, no worries. So when I refer to real decision making, will decisions only be made at council, or will you have the community involved in making decisions? Will you put referenda out to people? Will you let people choose in the community what goals, what climate programs they feel are the most relevant or the most acceptable, if you like, for this in this particular community? I mean, too often we leave decisions to 11 people rather than the 33,000 people that live in this city and that pay the bills in this city. So will you make decision making more participatory? I guess that's the question.
Great question. Thank you for clarifying that. I do understand your point. It totally makes sense. Like, real decision making should include the people. And as per my understanding, and for, I believe, I would say programs that come under my purview, we would be starting with a participation, some sort of strategy with the community. And from the information that I've gathered from the greenhouse gas reduction plan, which is actually the first plan that I reviewed as I started this position, was understanding where our community emissions are coming from. And based on those numbers, so building emissions, as you know, are 47%, and transportation emissions are 39%. So based on those numbers, and definitely it's open to participation from the community as well. Sorry, I got distracted from your message. Definitely, we will be, whenever we will be bringing out programs, we would appreciate community participation. As I mentioned, I do plan to bring my programs to the Energy Environment Committee, as well as there will be social media channels also identifying the programs and asking for input whenever that is necessary, and also engage Stratford. So I do understand your point, but because I have reviewed and I've had a lot of conversations with several individuals, I believe the best opportunities to reduce our emissions is to rely on the data we already have. And based on that, we need to focus on buildings and transportation. And all the programs that come under building and transportation, or any source of emission reduction opportunities, if there are any programs that come out from them in the short, medium, and long term, we would definitely have public participation. But I would be able to advise you about those when the programs actually are in place for such participation from the public.
Mike?
My question had to do with public consultation. I'm not very happy with the city of Stratford's reliance on social media as how to contact 32,000 people. There are lots of people in this town that don't use Facebook. There's lots of people in this town that have no access to the internet. And the city seems to not want to directly contact people there. I've been here 2 years, others have been here lots longer. There's never been a piece of mail coming from the city unless it's my tax bill. Is there a way that you can convince the city to be more direct with their outreach?
Well, thanks for your question, Mike. I understand we've had a similar discussion last week, but maybe I can make it clearer. As of now, we do have the Engage Stratford platform. I understand it's online, and I can bring this up with the decision makers, which is not just myself. So maybe the leadership and council can actually think about a more inclusive approach to involving the community and understanding what are the other ways how we can tap into I'm sure we have all these great ideas, as well as concerns and thoughts that the community really wants staff and council to know. So at this point, Mike, I'm sorry, I cannot promise that this will go ahead, but I can ask and take it forward to all the meetings I'm in, and hopefully we can find a solution to this in the long term. So thanks for your input on that.
Well, just a little thing I'd like to add on to that. Engage Stratford website that they're talking about using, and I take Mike's point that not everybody's on the web, but even when you're on the web, there are tools in there that will permit discussion more than just a one-way feeding into the system. There are a lot of different tools. So there might be a way of adapting that website to be more collaborative and community friendly. Just a thought. Anyway, Jeff had a question.
Yeah, I just want to echo both Alan and Mike's comment about the importance to me, Sadaf. A lot of the success of what you're going to achieve is much better engagement, because I've been here for 10 years. I do work in a lot of municipalities. This is not a city which normally engages with its citizens well, and I think it's a challenge. So I just want to reinforce that. I have 3 specific questions. I think one of the challenges you have is that, and I'm glad we have a new council. There's a sense, I think, from the old council that, well, this is a big issue, we get the issue, but we really don't have much of a role in it. So I'm interested in your ideas of how you're going to make sure the city sees they have a central role in dealing with the issue. Second question is that I'm just asking whether or not you've done a critical review of the existing plan and program, because you know this business well, and I'm interested to hear whether or not part of your mandate is to say, I'm not challenging the targets, I'm not challenging anything. I'm just wondering whether or not, because you're so experienced in the area, whether you've actually looked at the plan and have comments on the plan that might change as a result of your experience. And the last question is whether or not, again, from my perspective, both Enbridge and Festival Hydro have been very passive as energy suppliers into the city. They're not nearly as active as some other local utilities are. I'm wondering whether or not you have a plan for engaging the utilities in the work you're going to do.
Thank you, Jeff. Your questions are great. However, I have forgotten about the first one. So if you can just repeat the first one, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Okay, my first one was just the whole issue. I'm talking with the old council, so I'm going to cut the new council some new slack here. But I never got a sense that the council saw that greenhouse gas emission management is really a priority municipal issue. It's much more for the federal government, provincial government, and local citizens. And there's a cultural issue to me in terms of how much responsibility leadership the city can provide in addressing the issue. That's my question.
Yes, great question. And I'm really grateful because at this opportunity, at this point in time, I've just stepped into the role, and I'm glad that new council has also stepped into the role. So I am really positive, and I look forward to making them understand that our targets are, although they're citywide, they're aligned with other cities' targets, and other cities are getting there. It is actually, municipalities are actually at the crux of climate action. And there is so much that municipalities can do. There is funding available, and I'm not sure how much support we could get from the province, but there is substantial amount of support available in terms of funding and dollars from the federal government. So having that financial piece in addition to our targets is very important. So as I mentioned, one of my reports that is going to council on December 12th actually talks about the recent climate change initiatives. And it is actually something that I would like the new council to read about, everything that has been done until now. They must also know about our targets. So those are I want to mention here because I think somebody asked in the chat. So our targets are to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 30% from the 2017 baseline by the year 2030, which is in 7 years, and to also achieve an aim for net zero by 2050. So making the council understand these facts and also providing some sort of information on how we can get there, how other cities are getting there, because I've done something similar for New Westminster, and I believe it can be done. If it can be done in British Columbia, why cannot it be done here? So I am coming with a lot of optimism and positivity that I hope to pass on to new council, along with a lot of educational resources and awareness and information. So please don't think that only the new council will be making all these decisions and we have to adhere to those. It's nothing like that. It's all about community participation. And rest assured, the community's input is valued based on the data we have, as well as community input. That's how I imagine I would be bringing similar reports to council in the future. So please look forward to the agenda package. It will be released, I believe, by Friday. I'm not really sure, but Friday is the day when that report would be released for public viewing, as well as to all the new council members. So because this council is new and there are 6 new council members, I am very positive, and I'm happy to provide support in terms of their understanding of our targets and how we can reach there. Because as you know, Jeff, and we discussed this previously, it's not just about making plans. We can make the best plans, but it's more about implementation. So once we have council buy-in, we have community buy-in, we can see that we do have community buy-in. So that's great. So the implementation piece is as important or even more important than the planning phases or the conceptual phases. So I would maybe go to the second question now, which is about our plan. So, so the plan. I have reviewed the greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan as well as the 2017 baseline that I believe one of the climate change coordinators for Perth County developed for the city of Stratford as well as the county of Perth as well. So based on my understanding, there was a lot of, I believe there are some data gaps that can be targeted now that that I am bringing the implementation piece into play. Although the plan is great, it has different components like governance and building and land use, transportation, waste, and agriculture. I believe we need something more of an action plan, which is tailored to Stratford and which takes into account all the context behind just city emissions and not takes into account the entire emissions of Perth County. So, Jeff, what am I missing out on something? Please feel free to jump in.
No, I just want to make sure that you felt licensed because you're experienced enough, you know the space, that whether you feel licensed to comment on the plan, change some of the emphasis. And I agree with you, it's all about implementation. I'm hoping you're not just adapting. My recollection is the very first recommendation to council was they set a target of 10% against what they could be done. And I remember piping up in that discussion, you get 10% by doing nothing, by the penetration of electric vehicles in the county. All I'm saying is that reflected to me is a profound misunderstanding of how serious this is. And I want to make sure that because of your experience, your knowledge, that you're looking at that plan with a critical eye. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, please be assured, I look at all plans with a critical eye. And I actually compared to other plans that I've reviewed in the past. I have developed and the implementation of the Community Energy and Emissions Plan for New Westminster. I have developed that in the past year. So I have all the expertise that is required for developing plans as well as implementation of plans. So I do have some input and I have a lot of review comments from all the plans that have been developed for the city thus far. So it's not just the 2017 baseline and the 2021 greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan. There have been several other plans starting from 2008. So based on that, I do not want to start developing a new plan and waste, I believe that will be two more years. However, I do want to start with, and I intend to start with all the quick wins that we can take as a community, and maybe start with long-term, medium-term, and short-term actions that how the city can support the community to achieve in this timeline. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Jeff.
Yeah, my last question was just about also engaging Festival Hydro and Enbridge, because I don't see them so far as being very active partners in addressing the issue.
Well, I believe Festival Hydro has been collaborating with the city and upgrading the street lights from metal halide lights to LEDs. I did have a meeting with Festival Hydro, and actually Festival Hydro is also part of the climate change working group that we discuss some issues like all the key priorities, and this actually includes I believe 2 members from Festival Hydro, but I have not had a chance to contact or work with Enbridge yet. So and because Jeff, I've been here for 2 months, I would give myself a little bit of time to get more relationships developed with different stakeholders. So
Fair enough. Thank you.
yeah.
Or you gave us a figure of 1.5 million tourists a year. How was that number arrived at?
Well, that number was, thanks for your question, Laura. That number was provided to me by Destination Stratford.
That's what I'm worried about, because I've been trying to find out how on earth they ever came up with that number. So if you find out, let us know, please, because it's very, very doubtful. I wouldn't hang my hat on that. $1.5 million? No.
Hmm.
The festival only sells 400,000 seats, and many people go 10 times. So they're not tourists that are coming to Stratford. We
Something
have
to
a
think
lot
about.
of sport events, everything from curling to hockey to, basketball, etc. But those people aren't tourists. They're here specifically for a sporting event. And likewise, the patrons that serve the festival are not tourists. We never call them tourists with the festival because they're patrons of the theater. You see, they're not touring through the town. Yes, they use our restaurants and retail, but yeah, it's a very strange number that needs to be followed up with.
I will follow up, and if there's some sort of input from their end, I would be happy to bring it to this group.
Thank you.
Jane Marie?
I don't know if you're familiar with the rally that Fridays for the Future put on last weekend. One of the things that they were asking for was that whether you have input on all of the departments and sort of access to help in reduction in all of the departments in that. Or are you just working on certain things like?
I'm sorry, maybe you can clarify. Do you mean access to city departments?
Right.
Yes.
Do you oversee what all of those departments are doing to see if you can help with reduction as opposed to being asked? Like, is everything included?
That's a great question. I would love to clarify this because I'm sure it's not common news. But a large part of my role is actually working with different departments and applying a climate lens to all the different projects, programs, policies, and plans that are currently in place. Maybe they're being updated. Maybe we are planning new ones. So I am involved in maybe at different stages for different projects, but I'm actively identifying what emissions reduction opportunities we have. For example, if we have building retrofits there that are planned for the future or maybe the short term for the 6 months to 1 year timeline, I do help staff. I can help staff because of my technical experience. I can help staff identify what opportunities we have. And based on that, we can calculate our emissions reductions. I also mentioned to Mike and Jeff earlier, I believe in a separate meeting, that of all the city policies that we are bringing forward, I'm applying a climate lens to actually make sure that the policies are considerate of our climate targets and all the reduction opportunities we can have. So I hope that answers your question. So yes, I'm working with all the different staff. I am working with all the different managers as well in order to understand where we are. So we have a pathway for where we need to go, not just for the community, but also for the city.
I was wondering not necessarily about new projects and plans, but just the everyday workings of, say, Parks and Rec and different things like that. Like, you have access to trying to help them in their efficiency for the way things are done.
Well,
not necessarily new plans.
Well, I am here to apply a climate lens and an environmental lens to all things under my purview. Not everything is aligned with my work, but I do help them in understanding and providing support in where we can identify synergies or any emissions reduction opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question from Sheila, who wants to know where biodiversity is on your radar. It would be wonderful to see longer grass, more native perennials, along with public education.
Thanks for your question, Sheila. I also appreciated our short chat. I believe it was last month. Thank you for dropping by. So as I mentioned, I reviewed the greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan. It did have, just to confirm, it does have a section on ecosystem biodiversity as well as the environment. So it's named natural systems and biodiversity. It does encourage the plantation of native species as compared to exotic species from wherever. And also there's a strong focus on reducing invasive species by planting native species. I believe a great part of this would be also public education, because people love their lawns, but we do need to make them understand that planting native species is actually very climate friendly, and it's a quick win that everybody can implement within their yards. I am in the process of drafting something, and maybe we can use, I know that Sheila has been, I know there are some articles on our website from Sheila, and I'm hoping we can actually use these as information, and like the fact sheets that we have, we can also help amplify what we already have in order to make the public understand and help them into like choosing native species above other species.
That would be wonderful, Sadaf. So certainly public education is a huge part and a very difficult part. You've already answered part of my question by saying that you're working with all of the departments. So that warms my heart that you would then also be meeting with the parks people and all of those involved in different aspects of biodiversity in the city. So I'm very grateful for that and welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our intention is to plant as many native species as possible. So if there are any more updates, and I hope that there will be in the future, maybe in Q1 to Q2 of 2023, I'm sure there will be some sort of public information, and I would be happy to bring it to the Energy and Environment Committee for the public.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Is there any way that the city can be involved with, speaking of invasive species, the fact that our nurseries sell invasive species? Is there any control that you would have, like this Japanese barberry, periwinkle, you know, those kinds of plants are for sale in our nurseries. Do you have any role in that, in stopping that?
Well, I believe that actually comes under the purview of parks, not directly under my scope. So I would actually encourage you to reach out to our parks department and maybe advocate for this.
You mean our parks department is selling those?
No,
No.
the nurseries sell them.
You mean in the commercial nurseries?
Commercial nurseries, yeah.
Yeah, that's education. I hope you're all calling nurseries every year saying, do you have native plants?
They don't have a lot though still. Catherine asks, are city staff departments, staff or departments obligated to ensure a reduction in emissions? Are they obligated?
Well, the entire city is obligated to reduce their emissions, and because I have just started my role, I am personally obligated to calculate those emissions and make sure that we are making progress. So not just for the corporation, also for the city. So I would also like to note here that corporate emissions actually account for 1 to 2% of the total emissions of any city. So 98% of the emissions actually come from the community. So although the city can influence the community, but not 100%, is the community's role to actually take things forward, although the city is committed to leading and providing all the support we can to reach our targets.
I think Sheila's got a point with education. I think it keeps coming back to education, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's correct.
And
That's good to preach.
yeah, well, teachers do tend to bring it back to education, don't we? Yeah. There was a question from Patricia who asks, is there any chance the city will support a natural lawn program in Stratford? And can you, I guess we're all trying to figure out, how do you fit into our city system? As you probably have noticed, there's been a bit of an adversarial atmosphere between some groups and the city. And we're trying to figure out how you fit into that, I think.
Well, I am actually not aware of any, because I'm new to Stratford. I would really appreciate if you could bring me up to speed about these groups and the city. I'm not sure, but I'd love to answer your question.
About the lawns?
No, the other question, the one you just asked, how my role fits in with the adversary groups in the city. So I'm not sure
I'm not sure.
what that
Perhaps
means.
I'm not making it clear enough, but you know, I think a lot of us want to know how we can help you. How can we help you? How can we make this smooth? How can we really get everybody working together? That's what I'm talking about with adversarial. We have people go in different ways, right? How can we get on, and I think Sheila's got a point with education, but how can we get everybody going in the right direction? Can you do that for us, Sadaf?
Well, I'm here to lead the city's response, and I would be happy to be a leader for the community as well, because definitely my role is not just cities' corporate emissions. My role is also to understand and help reduce the community's emissions. So as Sheila keeps mentioning, yes, education it does play a huge part in it, but another important aspect of it, I would say, is making sure that your friends and families are also aware of our targets, and a lot of word of mouth goes a long way. So it's not just about targets, it's also about making small changes in our daily lives, and making all these behavioral changes, because guess what, these actually count. These are not just, if you start taking public transit or using active transportation instead of using a gas-powered vehicle for your shorter trips, it really adds up. And based on these small actions, we can definitely, if we can take small actions, we can definitely achieve bigger targets and have those actions in place for the community as a whole. So I believe how the community and how everybody can help participate and contribute to our emissions reduction targets and all our goals is by taking leadership. It's not just me who has to take leadership and lead the city's response, but it's actually the community members who have to be bold and take action for all the different programs that I imagine would come into play soon, perhaps maybe in the short term or even a longer term. I would appreciate participation from the city, participation from the different community members. If there's different supports or if there's some educational piece that needs to be provided, we would be happy to provide information or awareness sessions. I'm hoping we could use the ENE as a soundboard and maybe have some workshops if they are needed. At this point, again, I cannot promise that this will definitely happen, but this is something that we were doing at New Westminster for community engagement. We used to have different online sessions just to make sure, because of COVID, we couldn't meet in person. So this was definitely something on our radar, and I do hope to use all my learnings from there and use them here at the City of Stratford as well.
I've got a really practical question here at the bottom. Simple community project. Garbage pickup once a week in residential neighborhood involves the trucks going down the streets once east, and once west. A plan for the west place, there, what perhaps if the western people put their refuse across the street on the east side and have one trip down the street. Makes sense to me. I mean, did I say that right? You know, everybody put their garbage cans on one side of the street. I could do that. I guess that's a response to what you're saying, that the citizens can come up with a response to problems.
If there are simple aspects that have a simple solution, this is a great example for that. And I also want to mention that garbage disposal is not under my purview. It's actually under Public Works, and maybe it's not public news yet, but we did have a waste reduction coordinator with the city, Kate Simpson. She has moved on to another role with the City of Toronto, so we do not have anyone in her place at this point. I believe there will be someone who will step into the role, maybe perhaps in the next month or so. So until that happens, I'm not sure who can take charge of the recycling questions or ideas. But I would encourage you to get in touch with Public Works maybe in the next month or so and ensure that this reaches the right individual who can actually take action.
So just to clarify, so you're the climate manager and the garbage people, you see that the garbage people, if they put in that little plan to move all the garbage cans onto one side of the street, would save, I don't know, a ton of carbon, whatever. You see this, can you then go to the garbage people and say, garbage people, here's a plan that will save. Can you tell them to do that? Can you encourage them to do it? I mean, do you just have to encourage, or can you tell, basically, is my question. That's just a simple, practical point, right? How would you deal with it?
I can get in touch with the manager of Public Works and bring forward this concern.
Yeah. So do you have to work that into some project or report that you're working on to justify it to the city?
I'm not sure if that will be required. If it's something as simple as having one side pickup, maybe I can explore how this could be done without the need for a longer report or a lot of, I'm not sure at this point what it requires. Definitely, I would like to understand how. It doesn't seem like a difficult task, honestly, but I would like to understand what is the correct protocol for going through, although I can speak with the manager of Public Works, because this actually comes under him. I can definitely encourage that this would help reduce our emissions. Yeah, I would probably note this down. Thank you for a great question.
Well, another practical question from me would be, there is a plan in the city to remove one of our sidewalks and just have one sidewalk on street instead of two sidewalks. Apparently that's going to go on in my street. And I would just like to know, like, is that an environmental thing? Like, are cities doing this? Is this the new way we run cities, with one sidewalk? Because I just think that the ability people might have a little problem with that.
Are they putting bike paths, Sharon?
I am not sure, but I know we're losing a sidewalk. It's going to be like Brunswick Street, you know, they just take away one sidewalk. And so I was wondering if that was a climate thing, or if that had to do with what Sadaf is working on, or.
I am not sure if that's a climate thing, and I'm actually not sure what this entails, what this plan entails. So if you could maybe in the chat box provide a link to this information, I'd be happy to take a look, because it's not a climate thing.
Okay.
I mean, we are actually trying to find ways to encourage active transportation, and this does not seem to align with that vision of ours.
Oh, well, of course.
Sharon's point. Wanted to make a few comments. Dennis, that was a great idea that you had. about one side. I've always encouraged one of my neighbors on either side of me. We can put it together so there's one stop as opposed to two. That's even better. So I like that. Sharon, for the planning, my street was done in 67. We used to have a boulevard on either side, and now in 67 was one side has a boulevard, the other like with grass, and the other side doesn't. And now like when they were doing Valentine, it was like one side of the street can have a sidewalk and the other can't. And I think we're trying to utilize, especially when the roads were narrower, make them bigger. I think that's part of what they're trying to do. I don't know about that. My question was, when you were working in these other positions, were you there for a lot of the implementation part or the planning part, or and how did the implementation go?
Would you be happy to clarify the implementation of the plans that I developed?
So you developed plans. Were you there for it to be implemented?
Yes.
So how did that go? Was it easy? Did it need education? Sort of an overview of how.
It is
So we
very
know what to look
challenging
forward to.
because, yes, sure. Thanks for your question. So it is a challenge because there are so many different conflicting priorities to consider, and a lot of different individuals have different concerns. So it has been challenging. It was challenging, and I do envision it to be a challenge in Stratford as well. However, because we have the same concern, which is emissions reductions and encouraging active transportation, reducing our emissions from transportation, for example, when it comes to roads, I do envision partnerships with the community, and hopefully it would be a smooth transition. And it does include a lot of community input, which is great. I'm taking notes as we speak. And a large part of the implementation piece will also come on the community as an onus. So the community also needs to understand that maybe not use their trucks for short distances that actually waste a lot of fuel, as well as pollutes the environment. So I would, does it answer your question?
Yeah, when you talk about that, I commented one time about the parks board or some of the trucks for the city seem to be on all the time. And their comment was, and I think it was from Taylor Crinklaw, that in the winter they keep them going to keep them warm, whether they're in it or not, and in the summer to keep them cool. So that was sort of a mandated thing that they do. But I just wanted to comment on that. The other thing is, for everyone that's here, apparently until next week, there is a survey for the waste development, for the waste or the dump. So if you wanted to make some of your comments, if they don't give you the opportunity, just add it to something, because sometimes they don't ask questions that we want them to ask. But, that would be a great question for them about the recycling and about the using one side of the street. Recycling part, we maybe won't know until the federal government or the provincial government tells us what we're going to be recycling here, because there's going to be a change there. And the same with the federal.
Okay. Well, I still am a little bit unclear about how we're getting the community involved. I know you took down Mike's point about social media not being the only way that we get around, and I certainly subscribe to that. Did anybody else have a question for Sadaf? Except that we need a recycling coordinator.
Waste reduction coordinator. So that position was open since September, and it is now December, and I'm hopeful that there would be someone in place early next year, and they would be taking the lead on all the different projects Kate was working on. So this would be something for them to start with.
And alas, for me, a practical question. The E&E committee, why doesn't anybody ever go to the E&E committee? Is there a way that we can make the E&E committee more interesting for people, to make that a place where people can go and listen to what's said and really participate? I don't see a lot of people attending those committee meetings. Do you have any ideas? For, there is social media, I mean, I agree with Mike that it's not for everybody. There are meetings, there is that website, and there is the E&E, but they're just pieces, they're not related to each other. And I don't know, maybe they should all wear hats. What do you think? We have to do something to get more people involved with what's going on. I just wondered if you had any suggestions or ideas. New Westminster did it better.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah. You have any ideas? Did they do something creative in New Westminster?
Well, I believe we had a different approach at New Westminster. So the E&E actually had one councillor and a few representatives from the community, as well as city staff. So the E&E was actually a soundboard for city staff to present their ideas and presentations before the advisory committee members, as well as the couple of council members that I mentioned. And based on their input and feedback, that maybe, for example, a draft of a policy would be then taken forward to the mayor's task force on environment and climate. And based on feedback from that group, we used to take it to council. So that was a tiered approach, I would say.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I've not had a chance to attend an energy and environment committee meeting at the city of Stratford yet because of the elections. All the meetings have been canceled for the year, and I do look forward to meeting the new council. For the E&E, I believe, I'm not sure who would be on the committee, but I know that probably Jody Burback, Councillor Burback would be on the committee. So I'm hoping to understand how the committee works here. I know it's a bit different than how it was at New West. So maybe you could highlight how it is different here. Maybe a question from me to you.
Well, I think if I had a criticism of how it's done here, and it's just coming to me actually, it's this fact that it's all separate things. You can go and you can go to the E&E meeting and watch, and you can go to the website and you can go and do this and do that, but there's no really unified communal way of communicating with council. I just think that our communication is off, and we should find a way to perk it up, get together and work together. If we don't have communication, we're not going to get very far.
Definitely. So if you would like to get in touch with council, I believe all their email addresses are on the website, and you can also drop into City Hall to meet the different council members whenever they drop by. I know Mayor Ritzma is there almost every day.
Mhm.
However, as per my understanding, the E&E committee is currently it's an online meeting that participants are encouraged to join through Zoom. This might change in the future, considering that we have the elevator. It might be repaired sometime in the future, as we heard in the council meeting from 2 weeks ago. So I'm confident there could be changes in the future. However, I'm not sure because of COVID and of all these restrictions, as well as the elevator not working. So we really have accessibility issues we need to consider. So our intention is definitely to get a lot of voices on board so we make informed decisions moving forward. However, I would defer to council making that decision.
Actually, the online meetings are good because it includes a lot more people, because they normally just had a small room. Really, the public wasn't necessarily there. And so it's engaging more people. So that would be something to encourage to still happen, because there's less emissions with people going to a Zoom meeting. It's a committee. I mean, they don't have anything to say, so all they're doing is watching, but That would be a good suggestion. And maybe even some of the other our advisory committees that we know what's going on. Would be a good education for us.
Education. That keeps coming back.
Yeah, I'm a teacher too. What can I say? Dawn, you want to join in? You're a teacher too.
Oh, dear. Well, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I have one more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there is a speed limits in town, especially during the construction along Highway 7 and 8 and downtown. It's really slowed down the trucks. Anyways, I think it makes it a little bit more safer. But if you take Waterloo Street and Mornington Street, the speed limit goes from 30 to 40 to 50, all within 200 yards of the Falstaff School. It's sort of strange, isn't it? I hardly have time to get my bike from a stop to go across the street before another vehicle comes along and just swipes me out.
Because they usually go about 60, actually.
Because they oftentimes go beyond 40 or or 50. And we have kids crossing all the time. It's, and there's from Veterans Drive to Ontario Street, it's 50. From in front of the school, it's 40. And coming around the curve on Mornington Street, going out highway number 119, it's 30. And it's really confusing.
Have you spoken to anybody about that, Dennis?
Pardon?
Have you asked anyone about that at city?
No, I haven't asked anybody. I just noticed that it's very contradictory. And outside the city, they have experimented with limiting the local speeds to 30 kph, and it makes it safer for bikers, makes it safer for pedestrians, and causes an awful lot less accidents. And the police aren't so busy. It's just a whole concept. Are we so much in a hurry? I mean, I'm retired now. I'm not moving this fast.
And that's and that of course brings us to the thing that we didn't bring up is what are we going to get bike lanes that are actually set off from the traffic? Is there any way that we can do that? Like on Ontario Street, it's just a system of bike lanes just never seems to be coming, but it never really gets here.
Yeah. I don't know, it's just a lot of questions.
I'd just like to add one thing about E&E, and I know you are aware, Sharon, because you used the term. They are, E&E and many others are just advisory committees. They often have people coming from the city to present things that are happening in the city. And the committee itself can come up with an idea and ask representatives from the city to come and hear it. But it's not a binding committee in any way. It can advise and that's it. If the advice is not taken, so be it.
That's true.
So,
but I wonder if it wouldn't have more influence if more people attended. People, I don't see a lot of people in those committee rooms when I go there,
well, it's usually just the committee dealing with the business from the city or with the things that they have brought up. It would be great for people to perhaps present an idea to the committee or to talk to some of the committee members.
Maybe it should be encouraged. I know. I just find that the interface between the citizen and the city could be made a little bit better. to say that. And that's not a criticism of any counselor, or, you know, I mean, it's true, you can call your counselor your favorite counselor, but, you know, there should be something bigger than that, bigger than the one-on-one contacts that you have. Anyway, that's me. That's what I think. You probably think something different. So we have made this poor woman talk for an entire hour. So unless someone has any, does anyone have a closing question, or unless anyone else would like to add something? I would like to thank Sadaf. That was really brave. It was really good of you to come and talk to us, cranky people.
Well, I didn't
Hi.
know what I was signing up for.
Hi. Can someone hear me?
I can hear you, Joe.
Hi. I have two questions. One is, we recently moved to Stratford, and I noticed sometimes the air is so stinky. Can we do something about it?
Is that because we're an agricultural community?
So Stratford is within a very rural community that is agriculture based, as Sharon mentioned. So I'm not sure if we have anything that, I don't know if we can do anything to mitigate that smell, or maybe someone else has an option. It's not me.
No, I mean, come to think of it, if this is a tourist town or theater town, if I'm a tourist from somewhere else, I wouldn't want to smell that, to be honest.
Joe, I lived on a farm for 26 years, and every time that aroma drifted over the countryside, my husband would say, "That's the smell of liquid gold." I think that we need to be cognizant of the importance of the agricultural industry to our area, and maybe try to change your interpretation.
So thank you very much for talking with us. I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to get it up on the website, and I'm going to get people to tell people that it's there. And it really is a really good start in hopefully an ongoing conversation, ongoing back and forth between the community and our climate manager. So I thank you very much. I sincerely thank you for putting in all this work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and I hope I was able to answer your questions. For those of the questions I was not able to answer, hopefully we will have some answers in the future once I really get into the groove, as they say, and start with other pieces of the climate puzzle.